Sean Don, I think that's his real name, his nickname, has returned with a sequel to his fan-renowned 2012 mixtape, Detroit. He is no stranger to the hip-hop eyes. He's been garnering a lot of attention, dating A-list celebrities such as Jhené Aiko and Ariana Grande, as well as meddling and being friends with A-list artists or gargantuan artists as well, such as Eminem, Kanye, Royce the 5'9", and even 2 Chainz. But most of all, he's been the center of attention he's been releasing one of the most cringeworthy, sort of insulting hip-hop songs of the last decade, with trendy, eye-rolling production choices and very cringeworthy bars in his hit singles and albums. Now, truthfully, I haven't listened to the first Detroit project. I was severely curious on what he's going to do on the sequel here. Detroit, to his fan base and even to some of the critics, is his best project to date. And over the last couple of songs and over the last couple of releases, I was surprised on the progression that he's been going. I feel like he knows that he needs to up his artistry, up his pen game, and now and then you can sort of see that in his cohesiveness on writing a verse, narrating a story, crafting a song. So at the end of the day, going into this, I had a very open mind. I have to say, I'm impressed. I'm genuinely impressed on what he put out here. Now, one thing to note is that if there are any overarching criticism or major arrow to the knees, is that this project is very, very lengthy. It clocks in around an hour and 11 minutes, which I personally can't handle that much, Big Sean. I think it's a bit too much. And with that statement in mind, there were a lot of filler tracks or tracks that took a severe blow to the flow of the album. And of course, Sean being Big Sean, he has a lot of cringeworthy bars as well here. But he came out and impressed me from the start. Not immediately though. After a sort of shaky intro with the track Why Would I Stop, which is a typical Big Sean intro with these trendy trap rap production as well as the flows and cadence that we've come to know and be too familiar with at this point with Big Sean. We get a track called Lucky with a multitude of producers from DJ Dahi, Hit Boy, Teddy Walton, and I am gonna butcher this name, Rajat Chayed, with a very gorgeous sample-based instrumental here. But then the track really revs up his engine with the beat switch up from the middle towards the end. It adds more energy and it adds a lot more urgency to the feel of it. But what stole the show in terms of energy and dimension is Big Sean himself. He easily gives the performance of his lifetime. I thought the topics that he discussed was well thought out, was very cohesive about the grim streets of Detroit, his struggles with fame, his perseverance, his, to my knowledge, unheard of heart disease, and the way he ties that into the concept, the idea concept of him being lucky was very, very well written. I was very surprised. And his flow is good. Like, really good actually. I was really astonished. He has this spoken word flow from the beginning to the middle, and then from the middle to the end he switched up into these like chopper-like rapid flow. It kind of reminds me of like new Eminem with the staccato flow, with a really, really fast flow like in Kamikaze or Music to Be Murdered By. And the lines here, there were moments where I had to pause and shake my head and say to myself, is this really Big Sean writing shit lucky me to be rich in a world where nothing's free and separated from hell by 1 degree, surrounded by people who did first degree and the other ones that never got their first degree. That's just, to me, that's just really good wordplay. And the momentum is being kept up with the track Deep Reverence and Wolves. Deep Reverence with Nipsey Hussle, rest in peace, and Wolves with Post Malone. On Deep Reverence, I thought Nipsey's verse was really, really good. I didn't think him or Sean had pull out these lyrical swords that's ready to chop everyone up, but I think, especially Nipsey's part, I think whenever given a a topic of perseverance and just hustle and struggling to power and whatnot to Nipsey, he is able to provoke this really powerful demeanor, and it shows from his cadence, his urgency of his voice, and Sean does a really good job in keeping up with his energy as well, narrating the struggles that he has to go through in his life, and a very poignant story about a miscarriage that he had with Jhené Aiko. On Wolves, Sean and Post Malone talks about the grim environment they grew up in. The instrumental is very nocturnal with a very thumping drums, and the keys are very dark and subdued. I love it. I like the hook on this track. I thought it's very catchy. I thought it's very energetic and really pumps you up. I don't know if this is sort of a copy or an homage to 3 6 Mafia's Slob on My Knob. Regardless, I thought the hook was really well put together. I thought the two artists harmonizing with each other was really nice. My criticism with Post's verse is the same criticism I have with Sean's verse in this song, is that they can get a bit incohesive in telling a story or telling an idea of a song, even in the aspect of very dark or braggadocio stuff, but I thought this was a nice momentum to keep on from Lucky. Then we get a track called Body Language with Jhené Aiko and Ty Dolla $ign. It's a very explicit sexual track about Sean and Jhené Aiko ready to get hot, and you know. But there are two things that I have a major problem with this track. One being, it came after arguably 3 of one of the best tracks of the album. It kept a really good momentum. It just ruined it for me because I was hoping for another dark banger or a dark coming up story, and then we get a sexual track. But the other thing is that the idea of the song is that Sean and Aiko is ready to get hot and nasty, but then we have this Ty Dolla $ign feature. It makes it feel like it's a bit disturbing in a sense, like Ty Dolla $ign is watching over them as they get, you know. I do not need that picture in my head, and I can't believe I'm saying that because the chemistry here is actually not that bad. I just no, take Ty Dolla $ign out, please. And this Jhené and Sean duo also carries down on the track Time In, which on this track there's only 2 of them, but they have barely any chemistry, and the hook is just so lazy that it just makes me want to press the skip button immediately. After Body Language, we get a skit with Dave Chappelle, which we'll get into it later. We get into a chunk of the album where I'd argue there's a lot of fillers. There's really nothing really worthwhile to listen to aside from a couple of tracks. It's just the typical Big Sean execution that you've come to expect from him from his previous albums, talking about energy, vibing, triumph, just very bland in the end. Speaking of blandness, the peak of Big Sean's annoyance came on the track ZTFO, or Zen the Fuck Out, which, first of all, terrible track name. I had to pause the album, ask myself, like, what the fuck is happening? What happened to the Sean that had momentum in the first half of the album? We're going back to the cringy Big Sean I typically dislike, talking about if you don't match his energy, then he can't be with you. And he does it in the most obnoxious way possible, and a very restrained delivery, might I add. It seems like he even knows that this song was a bad idea, but he just went with it. You can tell from his cadence. And the cringy lines are back, this time at its peak on this album. If we don't have the same vision, then we can exchange contacts. But thank God, we get a track called Guard Your Heart with Wale, Anderson .Paak, and I'm gonna read Early Mac. The chemistry between the artist and Big Sean was beautiful. I thought the way they finish off each other's verses was really well put together. Wale gives a wonderful verse about racial injustice. Anderson .Paak, God, his voice is gorgeous on this track, is absolutely gorgeous, passionate, and Early Mac has this scruffy, trash-talking cadence and demeanor, but also have a very poignant message about triumph, as well as Big Sean. Sean contemplates things and meditates about his life progression, again, typical Big Sean topic, but he does it in a way that I don't find annoying. I think if he just lay down and just give genuine message, the product will be good. And I also like this line here: conflicted like being signed to Ye and managed by Jay, conflicted like being cool with Pusha and Dre. We get several tracks afterward with Respected featuring Young Thug and Lithuania featuring Travis Scott, which is absolutely dry and filler. Nothing remotely interesting about this track, even with Young Thug's interesting vocal inflections and Travis Scott's iconic ad-libs. I think they could have do something much more than what we got here. And yes, this goes to Big Sean as well. But later down the track list, we get two relatively strong tracks with The Baddest and Dawn Life featuring Lil Wayne. I think what impressed me the most with these two tracks is that Sean showed a lot of confidence in his energy and his voice and his rapping ability. Maybe I'm just a bit too biased by this, but on the track The Baddest, I really love his energy there, and the Godzilla theme sample was very nice as well. The track Dawn Life with Lil Wayne is another standout in the album here, with an uplifting and fighting demons messaging yet again. The instrumental is rapid, pummeling with these hard knocking bass, and very starry and dreamy with the Michael Jackson Human Nature sample. I thought Big Sean and Lil Wayne's performance was great. I thought the energy they had matched the very rapid instrumental, though Sean's energy, flow, and the switch up of his flow towards the end of his verse was really great. Lil Wayne, to me, easily stole the show because he has a couple of clever lines and lines that made me laugh. I bought a house so fucking big it feels like I'm my neighbor's. I'ma take my fucking chances, I'm a lucky bastard. My heart race till it catch up to who's it running after. And of course, we have to talk about the biggest elephant in the room in this album, the gargantuan song that is Friday Night Cypher, featuring tons and tons of Detroit artists, most notably Bad Meets Evil themselves, Eminem and Royce the 5'9". And I have to say, this track is an absolute clusterfuck of a mess. I thought the sample from Clips' Grindin' was a fun homage. And is that a gamelan that I heard in the background there with the beat switch up towards, I think, quarter 3 of the track? It sounds all too familiar for me. But the song feels like a blank canvas whereby these rappers just put paint all over it with no aspect of cohesion whatsoever. The different beats, the transition, the switches, it's all a clusterfuck of a mess that's just very shocking at the end. But I do have to give credit where credit is due. Some of the MCs here do have a very unique cadence and a very unique delivery. I thought Drago's delivery and flows was very nice. Sada Baby's cadence and delivery was animalistic and hungry, and Sean as well. He gives out a multitude of flow that I thought was very well performed. Royce, I think, had the smoothest flow and delivery. It's crazy to think that with the amount of years that this guy has put into hip-hop, he still manages to reinvent himself with interesting flows. It's as if he's still back in his eras in the 90s. Eminem's verse was alright. I just thought his cadence was a bit one-dimensional. I would have loved it if he switched it up a bit to give it a bit more edge into it. He has some bad lines, but he does come out with a couple of good lines here as well. Ripping rappers like they were wrapped in saran, bitch, and I'm strapped up with ammunition and single-handedly taking over the game like I had an actual hand missing. But I only need one to clap Animal Ambition. Now, we do get narration skits from Erykah Badu, Stevie Wonder, and Dave Chappelle, and the way they deliver it is so soothing. It's a nice, soothing narration and storytelling. But the one thing I took out from it is that Sean could have done something more with these. Could you imagine what the album would have sounded like if he based Detroit 2 on these 3 skits? I think that would have been the great homage to his city. But in the grander scheme of this album, it really leads to nowhere. So overall, I think this album was alright, but it's very good considering the progression of Big Sean, like his early years, giving this really cringy tracks and cringy lines to an individual who now and then I could see like good creative ideas, good creative executions, but I think he just needs the right mindset to tie it all in. But again, this was an alright album. I definitely see the growth in Big Sean here, and to be honest, I'm looking forward where he's going to go next after this album. So thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to follow my Instagram account at WhatTheRobotThinks for more content, and I'll see you guys soon. Stay safe. Peace!